What does God need with a starship?
Jim, what are you doing? I'm asking a question.
With his one and only turn in the writers and directors chair for the franchise, William Shatner partners with producer Harve Bennett to release Star Trek V: The Final Frontier in 1989, following 3 well-received films forming a loose trilogy. The year was a competitive one, with such iconic films as Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Batman, Back to the Future 2, and Ghostbusters 2. Star Trek V: The Final Frontier has garnered some infamy. Movie tier rankings almost always place it in the last of the Trek films, new or old. Until the very recent release of the poorly received Section 31 film, it was the worst-rated Star Trek feature film on both Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, at 23% and 43% respectively. People mostly remember The Final Frontier for its poor special effects, cheesy gags, and weak plot. But are those criticisms justified? And is there more to this film than its reputation alludes? Does The Final Frontier deserve this sour taste? Is it truly a bad film? Or still a good film that just doesn't meet up to the same expectations as others in the franchise?
Our destination is the planet Shakari.
The newly christened USS Enterprise A is dispatched to Nimbus 3, the so-called planet of galactic peace, jointly created by the governments of the Federation, Klingons, and Romulans, to foster cooperation, when the top diplomats are taken captive. The potential threat is amped up when a Klingon ship commanded by a captain bent on making a name for himself by engaging in battle with a Federation starship, especially one commanded by Captain James T. Kirk, whom the Klingons considered a renegade, bears down on Nimbus 3. A strike team reaches the captives only to discover it's a trap, intended to lure a starship to the planet by a zealot, a passionate Vulcan named Sybok, who is on a quest to find God, believed to be beyond the Great Barrier at the center of the galaxy. It turns out Sybok is the long-lost half-brother of Spock. Sybok is no ordinary Vulcan. He is an outcast, especially against established Vulcan society. He weaponizes his Vulcan telepathic abilities to brainwash followers. After an attempt to stop Sybok fails, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are tossed into the brig, while Sybok begins to manipulate the remaining Enterprise crew for his cause. Scotty engineers a successful jailbreak of the trio, but they don't get far before Sybok intervenes. Sybok attempts but fails to convert them to his cause. Easily breaching the previously unbreachable barrier, the Enterprise enters orbit of a planet. Sybok returns command to Kirk, who coordinates a landing party to explore the planet. An idealistic heavenly paradise quickly turns into a hellscape, and an ominous being appears resembling a stereotypical god. A being with one voice, but many faces. Kirk is perplexed when this godlike entity demands use of the Enterprise.
What does God need with a starship?
You doubt me?
I seek proof.
We learn that this is no respectable god. Vanished long ago to the isolated planet, the powerful being seeks to break from his imprisonment. Sybok realizes the dire situation is his fault, sacrificing himself for Kirk, McCoy, and Spock to escape. The main criticism of The Final Frontier targets its special effects, which unfortunately weren't produced by industry giant ILM. The reasons cited for using a different production house include both budget and scheduling conflicts, with ILM tied up in several other productions at the time. Certainly, the special effects can't match the perfection of ILM. But are they actually that bad, or just not as great? One thing that I think everyone would agree with is that the shots are simplistic and basic. The shot of the shuttle landing on the surface of Nimbus 3 really is pretty bad. The Enterprise approaching the barrier is also a bit rickety. But there are some shots that aren't necessarily bad, which I would take over some of the garbage CGI we see today. I'll take simple and basic over the noisy and constant, fast-paced movement any day. The use of obvious projections for the godlike entity is also a miss, making those scenes feel like something produced decades earlier, although modern green screen can look just as fake at times. Aside from the special effects, common criticisms involve the plot, and relatedly, the antagonist Cybok. Most criticism focuses on the film appearing on the surface to be a search for God, when that isn't completely accurate. William Shatner was partially inspired by the rising popularity of televangelists at the time, almost offering a satirical perspective on the growing movement. It's not the Enterprise in search of God. It's a zealot who manipulates followers and steals the Enterprise, searching for who he believes is God, who we learn is not in fact the God he seeks. The most glaring fault I agree with is making Cybok and Spock half-brothers, when this was never mentioned before or since in official canon. They could have just as easily made a personal connection between the two without it being literal, such as being close colleagues during their youth. Something similar to this unfortunate plot hole returns in Star Trek Discovery with the character of Michael Burnham.
You must kill me. Shoot him!
Another common criticism is Kirk's ordering Spock to kill Cybok when he had a gun point blank pressed against Cybok's chest. Some have argued this was out of character of Kirk, but lethal action against a potentially dangerous invader to protect his ship and crew seems justified to me. There are other obvious plot holes, but they are nitpicky and I don't feel severely impacted the film. Apparently, the Enterprise grew by about 55 decks, and reversed the order of the deck numbering, where Deck 1 is now at the bottom of the ship instead of the top, which is long established. It's a minor critique in the grand scheme of things, but something that bothers Trek fans. In another, the quick traversing from Earth to the neutral zone to the center of the galaxy is a glaring plot hole. Those are journeys that would take years. The ease of breaching the dangerous barrier that no one can survive is anticlimactic and lazy. The obvious reuse of sets from the Next Generation is an annoying budget-cutting move. While those sets themselves are redresses of sets originally built for the abandoned Phase 2 television series in the late 1970s, retooled for the feature films, they were heavily modified for the Next Generation series. They don't even attempt to redress them for the Final Frontier most of the time, especially the corridors. The sets are like two different disjointed areas, imperfectly merging. They don't match the design of the sets built explicitly for the Enterprise A. The carpet, the doors, all unchanged. Sick bay and the transporter room are obvious reuses, with barely any modification. And I'm not entirely sure, but the forward observation lounge appears to be a redress of 10 forward. If it is, it's one of the few examples of effectively redressing a set. The bar from 10 forward also appears to have been used as the bar in Paradise City. The subsequent film, The Undiscovered Country, also reuses several sets from the Next Generation, but takes greater care in altering them so it's less obvious. The Enterprise Bridge set, a film original, is an improvement over the one used for the past feature films. It's brighter, bigger, and introduces a primitive version of the LCARS interface and accompanying acoudigrams that are now iconic. There is wasted potential of some of the great guest actors, chiefly David Warner, one of the best actors of his time, who thankfully has other stronger Trek appearances. I'm not going to pretend that The Final Frontier is the greatest film, or that it doesn't have its faults. Even I would rank it low on a tier list. But that doesn't mean it's a bad film. It only means that it doesn't meet the caliber of exceptional films in the franchise. It has some excellence that is worthy of praise, and I truly enjoy it. The film's theme is one about faith, or challenging one's faith, distinguishing what is real and what is fantasy, or a dream, as referenced in the lyrics Row, Row, Row Your Boat, sung by the trio at the campsite early in the film, and later quoted.
Are we dreaming?
If we are, then life is a dream.
Star Trek encouraging its audience to challenge common held beliefs is common, as is the concept of a false god. It never disqualifies the possibility of a God. In fact, Bones even speculates if God really is out there. At the same time, the film doesn't advocate for such beliefs either. People's beliefs are their own, which the film respects, but it does examine what happens when we learn the reality of a strongly held belief being contradictory. The film teaches us that past mistakes make us who we are, and we lose ourselves without them.
Damn it, Bones, you're a doctor. You know that pain and guilt can't be taken away with the wave of a magic wand. They're the things we carry with us, the things that make us who we are. I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain.
Its broader message is the importance of keeping an open mind. Drawing on examples of geniuses once believed to be heretics who believed in something considered impossible in their time, only proven to be true since. It makes the audience wonder if Sybok is crazy or truly a visionary, adding some compassion for his cause. Let's start with the easiest positive, the soundtrack. Composing his second Trek feature film, Jerry Goldsmith doubles down on the themes he introduced in the motion picture and carried into The Next Generation to deliver what may be the best soundtrack of all the Trek feature films. And I don't just mean the iconic bombastic main theme, but in some of the softer pieces too. As an excellent composer does, he utilizes themes to match certain scenes, having a unique theme for the Shakari scenes, as well as the familiar Klingons theme. There is an underlying theme that he uses throughout, tying it all together. I would argue that The Final Frontier captures the tone and character of the original series best of all the Trek films, and really understands the relationship between the big three, Kirk, Spock, and Bones. The campfire scenes are among the best in the film. Their friendship is more candidly evidenced here than arguably in any other Trek segment, a friendship that parallels family. Kirk even calls Spock his brother, following a brief moment of the audience holding their breath, thinking he's referencing his actual brother, Sam, killed in an episode of the original series.
As you are so fond of pointing out, Doctor, I'm half human.
Well, it certainly doesn't show.
Thank you.
On the other hand, the alleged romance between Scotty and Uhura fails, which feels completely out of place.
How many times do I have to tell you the right tool for the right job?
The comedy is up to interpretation. Yeah, it's cheesy, but I tend to appreciate cheesy comedy, so it works for me most of the time. The comedic irony of Sulu and Chekhov, who navigate and plot the Enterprise's course, being lost and unable to navigate Earth, is hilarious. Perhaps the funniest gag is Spock being hung up on interpreting the literal meaning of the words from Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
We'll be having a good time.
While some of the special effects don't meet the gold standard of exceptional, some action scenes do. The shuttlecraft Galileo crashing into the shuttle bay at high speed is one such example. The crash is flawless, although some of the lead-up scenes are examples of the film's poorer special effects. The expanded scene with the shuttlecraft returning from the surface when a known-cloaked Klingon ship lurks in the background is one of my favorites of the entire film. There is even some minor comedy injected into it.
How often have you done this?
Actually, it's my first attempt.
The rescue team entering Paradise City is a great action piece, packed with the type of swashbuckling action we commonly witnessed in the original series. The effects and explosions are top-notch. While not as threatening as Khan or the Borg from the franchise's most critically acclaimed films, Sybok does work as an effective antagonist, because he is driven by a precise motivation without an explicit desire to inflict harm. Charismatic, he's a well-rounded antagonist, performed exceptionally well by Lawrence Luckinbill. When we learn that his beliefs are disproved, one can only feel a little compassion for him, despite his bad deeds, and that makes for a good antagonist. Acting as a B-plot, the Klingons are the film's secondary antagonists, and arguably a bigger physical threat. The Klingon performances and depictions are excellent. One of the great scenes is when Sybok attempts to use his mental abilities on Kirk, Spock, and McCoy to convert them into followers. The scene establishes some backstory and offers insight into our trio of main characters, and offers some great acting opportunities. In fact, it may be DeForest Kelley's best acting performance of the entire franchise, when he's reacting to the sorrow of his father's death. His inability to use his advanced medical knowledge to save his father, and his regret in stopping his father's artificial life support only weeks before a cure was found. Something subtle that I think is overlooked is the strong attention to detail in directing this scene, with the barrier slowly approaching through the windows. Another example of this subtlety is narrowing in on the monitor, showing the bird of prey entering range, foreshadowing conflict as the crew is distracted.
You never cease to amaze me. Nor I myself.
Is The Final Frontier an exceptional film? No. Is it a bad film? No. It's complicated to assess because it's neither. Critics define it as a bad film mostly because of its comparison to great Star Trek films. It's enjoyable to watch, and the defects have been greatly exaggerated against the pros of the movie. While not even close to my favorite Star Trek film, I actually enjoy this film above some of the others that have garnered higher critical acclaim. If you like this kind of content and want to see more of it, support the channel. More content is also available on strekonline.com.